Hi, Dominique, and welcome to another edition of the week ahead. So let's kind of dive in, as we always like to do, about any key data, market moves, speeches, and how did any of that impact your general thinking?
So Fed-wise, we got the beige book, but it never conveys much information that we don't already have from the data. The more interesting stories this week, the doves becoming a tiny bit less dovish and talking about high growth and how it could threaten long-term disinflation. I noted with great interest that Goolsbee is now entertaining an additional hike in 2023. So you know how the FOMC works. A week or so before the actual meeting, the chair calls each participant to have a one-on-one conversation, in part because you have this law in the US called sunshine, government under the sunshine or something. And whenever there is a meeting with more than 2 or 3 participants, it has to be minuted. So, I mean, it's absurd. So anyway, you have this round of consultation, and I suspect that the convergence of the doves towards more balanced policy views probably reflects that. And so this adds to my conviction of no hike this month, but very likely a cut in the number of cuts penciled in for 2024, currently 4, and also an upgrade of the growth projection.
Upgraded growth and some of the cuts taken out for next year.
Yes.
Yeah. And you're still calling for a November hike.
Yes, because even Mr. Goolsbee is saying that the Fed is almost done. I'm going to issue my Fed monitor next week so people can see the latest comments from everybody. Right. But yeah, to my great surprise, even he is entertaining an additional hike.
Okay, great. And how about market reactions? How would you feel? Are you surprised by any of the market movements? Obviously, there's other things besides China and other things driving, but I guess in the bond market, are you surprised by any of the movements, equities?
Well, I mean, in terms of policy, I think the market was far too optimistic about the Fed being done. There was a very dovish interview, New York Times interview of New York Fed President Williams in early August that I think many people interpreted as the Fed is done. And I think the recent communication made it clear that no, it's not done. In terms of economics, I think we are in a kind of stasis, which is a good segue to talk about the data development this week.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, we got a better than expected services PMI. Unfortunately, the PMI have decoupled from GDP, including the services, but still market reacted strongly to it. And in my view, it's more because the market were underestimating the strength of the economy, possibly on the back of that New York Times interview. And so there has been a sort of a reality check there. In my books, the problem with the surveys, they tend to be distorted by people's partisan politics. There's actually an academic article showing that. So I don't put as much of a weight. I think the market is putting more weight and also putting more weight on the prices paid components of the survey, which has been going up, and people think it's going to be correlated with the PPI that we are getting next week. I'm not sure. I mean, what's difficult is that over the past 2 years, we've had a huge inflation shock, so everything has moved together but it's not clear that those correlations will continue under more normal economic conditions. I mean, my view, I think inflation is sticky. I think the core goods price disinflation is going to last. I'm personally not putting too much weight on the PMIs, even though it points in that direction. But the market did, and that's why we had, in
Right.
particular, we had the move.
Right. Better entry points for us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
Okay, cool. So it's a good segue into this coming week. So what are the key events, data releases, any speeches, political things that our clients should be thinking about?
okay, so in terms of Fed, it's a pre-meeting blackout.
Yeah.
So all the action will be with the data, CPI, of course, and I agree with the consensus. I think we are in a sort of a stasis environment where nothing much is moving. I think what might happen is that if the oil price move continues, this could shake things. We could see a return of economic volatility. But for this week, I agree with the consensus, probably 20 basis points month on month core CPI, with the same structure of OER not moving, 50 basis points a month.
50. Yeah.
Probably core services about 20, above 20, and then some deflation on the core good side. PPI, import prices, those have been bottoming out. I agree with the consensus. I think we probably have reached the bottom there, because if you think of the long-term factors driving the cost of producing goods, they are going up, not down. What else? The University of Michigan Consumer Confidence Survey. So once upon a time, those surveys were quite tied to durables consumption. But again, like all surveys, they've become distorted, unfortunately, by partisan politics. That said, the one interesting part of the survey is, to me, is the price expectations. If you look at August gas pump prices relative to July, in August, they are up 10%. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw an increase in the 1 year inflation expectation, which to me is probably a bigger driver of wages than the medium term inflation expectations. The Fed is focused on medium term because, a good part of their positive outlook rests on the idea that inflations are stable. I mean, inflation has moved up, but from the Fed perspective, they are okay. So they are more focused on long term. For me, as an economist, I think the short term is probably a more important driver of wages. What else? We'll also get the small business optimism survey. And I think it will continue to show that there is no credit crunch, basically, that SMEs that want credit can get it. And then some data on manufacturing. So the Fed, nationwide manufacturing, the New York Fed manufacturing survey. Agree with the consensus. In any event, manufacturing is only 10% of the economy. I think this is
and I feel like they've been, most of those have been like quite volatile.
Especially the New York Fed. I mean, they clearly have a problem with data quality following the pandemic. So they need to go back and redo the survey. And so the data is so noisy that it's really hard to read. And of course, we'll get our first day jobless claims that, to me, it's low quality data, but it still points at a tight labor market. So in terms of political developments, we might get some movement on funding the government. As you know, end of the month, end of the fiscal year, if we don't want to shut down, some money has to be given to the government. We're not going to get a budget because there is not enough of a bipartisan consensus. Very likely, we are going to get a continuing resolution which extend government funding based on current levels. There will be the usual brinkmanship. For instance, you have the Republicans who want a level of spending below what was agreed at the debt ceiling deal in June. But we know how that brinkmanship always ends. The bottom line is that government shutdown have hurt the electoral prospect of the Republicans more than those of the Democrats. And also, if you look at what the Republicans settled for in June, I mean, a very symbolic cut in expenditures.
Wasn't
I
great,
can't see
yeah.
them- Yeah, I can't see them taking a hard line this time around either. So no prize for guessing that around midnight on September 30th there will be a deal on funding the government. So that's about it.
Okay, it's awesome. Quick announcement for our clients who don't know, we're super excited to have Mirza Beg join us this week to lead our global emerging market strategy effort and work very closely with the team, with Dominique, with you, Mustafa, in the US, with obviously Caroline on emerging markets, Malala in general, all our clients. So for those who don't know, he was a senior macro strategist at BNP and Morgan Stanley, and most recently was a portfolio manager at Point72. And we're very overjoyed, I would say, and also an amazing feedback we've gotten from clients. He's going to be based out of North America, but as we've seen so far, very flexible on working 18-hour days. So that should be awesome.
We are very excited to have him. Great
Very
addition
excited,
to
yes.
the team.
Quick thing on some of the stuff we put out recently this week. Bilal does a kind of a macroscope, looks into why we actually see a growing rationale for dollar strength, and can see the euro go to 105 and even potentially as low as parity. And also this would mean most likely dollar yen well above 150. Again, this would be driven by growth divergences and obviously interest rate divergences. We also have those trades kind of represented through fixed income as well. I kind of agree. The Varesh had a great thing, again, very applicable to our discussion here around why we continue to see oil prices well supported. Dominique had a great thing looking at household savings rates. Whole bunch of interesting things. Why has EM cut too soon? I think we're talking about Poland. And for our pro clients who don't always, if they read anything during the week, I would highly suggest the weekly investment view, which comes out on Tuesday. That is a summarizing of all the senior researchers' views and what they view as the most important. So that is absolutely an interesting thing. Of course, the PCA model, which we're continuing to look to refine and build on, and everything else. So wish everyone a great upcoming week. And as always, please keep your feedback coming. Have a great weekend. We're taping this Friday afternoon. And yeah, wish everyone luck. Any parting words?
No, absolutely. Best of luck to everybody. Please keep the feedback coming. Negative feedback, especially helpful. And hopefully, switch on a week from now for the next installment.
Exactly. And enjoy the US Open semis and finals. Okay, cool. Goodbye.
Bye.